some Lions fans were kind of questioning Dan Campbell, his decision on 4th and 3. Could have kicked a field goal. Could have, and I got into some debates with people about this. Against the 49ers, though, I think going for it was the right option. What I disagree with is passing. I would have ran the ball because the Lions' best receivers seem to do best across the middle. That's also where the 49ers' defense is best. And I understand Jahmyr Gibbs had just fumbled. And I understand momentum and you're away and 49ers are got all the momentum and all that. I understand all that. Give the ball to David Montgomery or give it to Jahmyr Gibbs. I'd be fine with giving it to Jahmyr Gibbs because one play should not define him. And it was a bad handoff. It was on both him and Goff. But I'm not, as a coach, I'm not going to say, hey, look, yes, you made 100 phenomenal plays throughout the season, but you fumbled this one time and now we're taking you out of the game. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, give it to David Montgomery. And this isn't something that is weird for the Lions to do. The Lions were stopped 3 times all season, 4th and 3 inside opponent territory. This was basically their version of the tush push. They went for it on 4th down more times than any other team besides the Carolina Panthers. And the Carolina Panthers, I'm pretty sure, only went for it so many times on 4th down because they were behind all the time. I don't have the breakdown for that, but they went for it 8 more times. The Lions were far and above the average, though. They had 52.5% 4th down conversion rate. So over 50% of the time you're converting it. And I don't know. I get why people don't think it was a good idea. I really do. I really do understand why you're just like, just take the points and live to fight another day. But you've had so much success with this before. It would be like telling the Eagles to not go for it on 4th-and-1 when they've had so much success with the tush push. If Dan Campbell calls it to go for it and they get it, he's a genius. He's an aggressive coach. It's what got them there. It's what got them to the playoffs. It's what got them to the NFC Championship. I can't all of a sudden be mad at Dan Campbell if I'm a Lions fan and be like, oh, well, he needs to stop doing that. Well, if he stops doing that, then you've lost who Dan Campbell is as a coach. And if it was someone like Zach Taylor, who doesn't go for it on 4th down a lot, or Brandon Staley, where it was just like, it seemed like he flipped a coin on the sideline. It was like, okay, yeah, go for it. That's understandable. I get being upset with that. But going into halftime, they were surprised that he kicked the field goal going into halftime. They thought he was just going to go for it on 4th down going into halftime. Because that's who Dan Campbell is. I like the move. I understand that you can say that's why they lost the game. I don't think it is, because there were 100 more plays that happened during the game. Josh Reynolds had a bunch of drops. Brandon Ayuk had an insane bounce off the helmet catch that was just luck. But I think Dan Campbell made the right call because he stuck to his guns. He stuck to who he is as a coach. Like I said with John Harbaugh, they abandoned their identity and lost. Dan Campbell stuck to his identity, still lost, but I respect it. I mean, what do you think, Chus?
I mean, I get your points, and I agree with them, and I like the idea of him keeping his identity, as you kind of mentioned, because obviously Baltimore kind of lost that during their game. But I personally think that when it comes to Detroit, I really think that in some case scenarios, I understand being aggressive is key, especially with this team, because that's how they've been all season is, converting on 4th down and doing really well and whatnot. But I think the problem is in a situation like this, you're kind of at the point and stage that you needed to kick a field goal. I feel like they really should have, just because San Francisco is a team that comes back, and once you make one mistake, it's over. And then we saw that. It was before you knew it, San Francisco was within a touchdown, and then like they were only within a certain amount of points and stuff like that. And we saw that throughout the game, just based off of fumble recoveries, mistakes, and just different things like that. So I think kicking the field goal probably would have been the more smarter of a decision, just because it's a safety and an insurance. Just because at that point you just want to keep racking the points, especially when you're this close. You've never gone to a Super Bowl, and you have a lot to lose by trying to go for it on fourth down. And like, yes, you're being risky throughout some of these plays and stuff like that. And sometimes it is, but when you're versing the number one team that is the current favorite to win the Super Bowl throughout the entirety of the playoffs and probably the entirety of the NFL this season, most of the time, you don't want to, you kind of would rather, in my opinion, I'd rather play a little conservative at that point in the game than trying to force something, because then that's when trash happens, and that's what happens. And I think it was a bad move, but I see where you're coming with from it. But I think it would have changed a little bit of the complexity of the game. I think it could have changed it. I don't know what, because you can't really predict how it'll change it in the NFL, but it might have changed it.
Okay, well, I mean, this is a what if, and we can do what ifs all day about this, but let's say hypothetically Riley Patterson misses the field goal. I think it was about a 45-yard field goal.
Well, then you would have been in the same spot. You would have.
Yeah, but then the media is saying, why did Dan Campbell abandon what he's done all season and not go for it on fourth down? He's done it all season. They go for it the second most.
Well, that's called the media,
But I mean,
those type of media outlets, like, they like to feed off of everything, and that's how it's going to be. No matter what decision you make, it is going to be questioned. Right. And that's what's happening right now, is it's being questioned why he didn't kick the field goal. It would have been the same thing if they would have lost, because, maybe they would have kicked the field goal, got the points, and still lost. Why didn't Dan Campbell go for it? Maybe they would have scored a touchdown. Okay, he misses the field goal. Why did Dan Campbell abandon his whole mentality from the entire season? It's just how it is. It's just what they feed off of. I mean, that's just how it's being interpreted. But everything anybody ever does is just going to be how it is. So,
at the very least, if I go for it on fourth down and I get it, let's say I don't get a touchdown. Let's say the next set of downs I end up on fourth down again. I can waste some time, though. And the less time Brock Purdy and his Avengers have the ball, that increases your chance of winning.
Are you going to tell Kansas City that? You should email. Patrick Mahomes.
But both teams. That's true with Patrick Mahomes too, though. I think both. I mean, Brock Purdy was horrible in the first half. He was phenomenal in the second half, though. If we know Patrick Mahomes is going to be good in the Super Bowl. We know Brock Purdy, he should be. He usually is. But let's say, okay, I don't get a touchdown.
We haven't seen Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl.
No, but I'm saying in his games, he's usually good. Yeah, he's been in the spotlight for a while, and we know what to expect from him. But instead of 5 minutes, now maybe the 49ers only have 3 minutes, and I go into overtime, which 3 minutes is still a lot of time for the 49ers. But I just think keeping the ball away from the 49ers as long as possible, even if you're only going to come away with 3 points, that's the move. And that was the move here. But, I mean, it's a gamble, and it was a lose-lose situation. Dan Campbell wasn't going to come out on top as long as the Lions didn't win. Nobody is mentioning that Josh Reynolds had like 3 drop passes on those late drives either.
Yeah,
like straight to the chest.
That was tough.
And the Jahmyr Gibbs fumble was big.
Yeah, it changed everything. It really did. That changed a ton.
But everyone's talking about that 4th and 3 and saying Dan Campbell lost them the game. I don't think that's true. And I think there is a justification for him doing that. And I liked the move. I liked that coaching style. I liked that he stuck to his guns.
And he ain't going to get fired. He's not going to be on no hot seat. Nothing like that just because of that play. I think that, like you said, I think, obviously I don't think it was smart, but based on the like the mentality that he's had all season with going for it on fourth down, it makes sense. I just think that you shouldn't have done it in that kind of stage in the game, and based on being in the NFC Championship against the powerhouse potentially of the NFL.
I can understand that.